All right, guys, just want to welcome back to the College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here will be looking at the LA Bowl live from SoFi Stadium. UCLA 2-point favorites over Boise State, ABC, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, December 16th. Now, this is a game you certainly want to monitor their transfer portal and potential opt-outs, as both teams have plenty of talent that could inquire in neither of those certain factions. Looking at the offenses, though, UCLA, their top passer, Dante Moore, is in the transfer portal. Didn't have a great year, flipped on the last day of the cycle from Oregon to the Bruins. Now he's already gone. So it looks like it's going to be up to Ethan Garber's 9 touchdowns, 3 picks. He had 984 yards in his couple of appearances, 134 passing attempts for him. He had a good game against Stanford and Colorado. Had a couple of touchdowns against USC. That's obviously pretty easy. But for the most part, this is a quarterback position we thought would be settled, Nick. And I really thought it'd be Colin Schleal to take advantage of it, with more potentially breathing down their necks, and it wasn't either of that. This was a poor position this year. 21 touchdowns, 14 picks as a team, 57% completion rating, and they have some nice weapons. Logan Loyal, J. Michael Sturvant, 32 reps for 455 for him. He's an explosive player with some good speed. Loyal leads the team in all categories, 58 grabs for 650 and 5 touchdowns. They're not very deep at the pass catching position by any means, though. They have a couple of different guys who have over 10 plus receptions. But those top two, those are going to be the ones to look at. What do you expect from this passing attack in this game, Nick? Because I'm just really not sure, especially with Moore opting out.
This offense has been disappointing, which is crazy to say with a Chip Kelly coach team. You kind of expect offense first when Kelly's at the helm. 25.8 points per game is just not a good enough number. 21 touchdowns to 14 interceptions, just not a great ratio there either. 4.67 yards per attempt, 5.78 pass yards per attempt for this offense. More obviously out at this point. It doesn't seem like he's going to be back. Ethan Garber's taken over, like you said, about 1,000 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, 3 picks. Garber's now going to take over this offense. Have a chance here to be the guy to lead this team, but you really don't know what to expect out of Garber's. When he steps on the field, Logan, a good wide receiver there, good talented player, 60, 11 scores for him. Bill Sturdivant, 455, 14.23 scores. Maliki Maltavo, 266, 22.2 yards per catch. He has limited grabs. That's a solid number. 2 touchdowns for him. Carson Ryan, 205 and 15.8, 3 touchdowns. This team wants to have success. They're probably going to have to run the ball here in this game. Steele, TJ Harden are going to be your 2 backs that are going to get a bulk of the load. Those are 2 talented backs they have there, especially Steele, who leads the team with 847 yards of ground, 5.1 and 6 scores. Harden, 722, 5.3 and 6 scores. So this offense is kind of all over the place. They're a bit of a mess here with the opt-outs. It's certainly not helping this unit that seems to be limping through the Pac-12 season. A very disappointing for Chip Kelly company, as this offense just really had no pulse and was a mess the entire year.
Yeah, the rushing attack, I thought they'd be a little bit better, but 191 a game is no slouch. 4.7 yards per carry, 6 scores each from Harden and Steele, 847 for Carson and 722 for Harden. I think both of these guys will play. I know transferring doesn't appear to be on the table for either of those guys, especially Steele came over from Ball State, and I don't know if he'll be entering the NFL draft either. So I think the running game will certainly be a big part of this game here. Left guard Spencer Holstage had a better season than anticipated. Duke Clemens at center is great. Obviously, they replaced a lot up front. For the most part, they were really good. The tackles weren't all that great, though. Garrett DiGiorgio at right tackle. Left tackle Bruno Fina, just completely awful. Was not good one bit, giving up almost 40 pressures this season. So the interior is something they're going to look to run behind in this game. Look at Boise State. This is a team I picked to beat UNLV, and they beat them pretty handily, 44-20. And the reason I did that is I feel like this running game would have a lot of success. And, man, they were highly impressive. 301 yards, 3 scores as a team on 51 carries. Ashton Gianti, this guy's phenomenal. 1,262 yards, 14 touchdowns, another 552 and 5 scores on 39 receptions. Now, this is a guy that could potentially be a candidate for the portal. I think he'll probably play the game if he hasn't announced anything so far. This is a great player. He's probably going to be on a big Power 5 team next year, I'd expect. The top receiver, Eric McAllister, he opted out a long time ago. About over a month ago, he decided to enter the transfer portal. Billy Bowens, second leading receiver now with 25 grabs and 360. So this passing attack is pretty much non-existent. I think Taylor Green's really good, and Boise State had a great game plan against UNLV. They would only throw it off play action. They were money. 12 completions for 226, 2 scores. Did have a bad interception. But I love the approach against UNLV, Nick. They executed it perfectly. They were able to get guys wide open downfield. 11 touchdowns, 9 picks for Green this year. 436 and 9 rushing touchdowns, though. You added George Haloney, to that group, 6'10" and 5 touchdowns in his 7 games. This is a great rushing attack, Nick, going against a great rushing defense. Something's got to give.
This is a fantastic rushing attack. I thought Green, has been a serviceable this year. Obviously, the numbers don't. 57% comp rate, 1,700 passing, 11 touchdowns, 9. Good when he needs to be. Obviously Ashton Genty is going to be the one that carries the load. The stats you rattle off for him are just truly impressive. He should probably jump up and make the move to the Power 5 level. I think he certainly deserves it at this point with the 12.62, 6.2, and the 14 scores. Green is solid on the ground. George Haloney is really solid on the ground as well. Losing McAllister when they did, was obviously disappointing, but they have some other talented players. Genty, he's great as a receiver as well. 552, 14.2, and 5 scores for him. Billy Bonens is a good wide receiver for them, a good talented pass catcher. Stephen Cobbs is solid as well. This offense has nice balance, 32.9 points per game, 5.39 yards per attempt on the ground, 6.61 yards per play total. I like those numbers a whole lot, 44.2 yards per game. This is an offense that's very successful. They scored a high rate and a nice clip here. They have a solid offense overall. They've been playing really well under their interim coach who now has the full tag, Spencer Danielson. I like the way this offense is continuing to play. They're on a roll.
4 wins in a row, 40-plus points in 3 of those games, again, including that win in Vegas for the conference title game. So Boise State's offense is really making moves right now. Going against that UCLA defense, though, Deonton Lynn, he's obviously left for USC. There's probably going to be some opt-outs when it comes to maybe the Murphy twins. I definitely think Leatu won't play. So there's certainly going to be a lot to monitor here, but I'm just going to assume that this is not going to be a defense that's up to full strength. Leatu this year, elite football player. He's going to be a top 10 pick for sure. Again, the Murphy brothers have been phenomenal as well, on that defensive line. This is one of the best defensive lines in college football, Nick. If those guys don't play, we're starting to have to turn to some of the younger playmakers up front for them. So it's tough to assume what's going to happen here, but I definitely think the linebackers, Darius Masau, leading tackler for them, Olu Aladejo, those guys are certainly going to play. Carl Jones Jr. up front, he's a guy you're going to certainly look to. Jay Toai. Those are very capable football players on this D line. The production was flat out elite for some guys like Leatu and Gabriel Murphy, though. So if they don't play, it's going to be a big thing. Gary Smith, Cole Bryant Schrather, these guys are, gotten pretty good size this year. Some of the younger players will have to get involved. What is your assessment of the Bruins defensive line? It's likely not to be at full strength, and if they're not, what do you think that holds for them against the run, where they've been dynamite this year?
They're at full strength. You can expect a very good unit against the run. 2.33 yards per attempt on the ground, giving up just a crazy number for this defense. They're very strong against the run. 18.1 points per game, giving up 69.5 rush yards per game, giving up just great numbers across the board. Again, they're probably going to be missing some guys, like you said, but overall, this is just a very talented unit, top to bottom. Leatu is just fantastic. 49 total tackles, 21.5 tackles for loss, 13 sacks for him. Just incredible numbers from Leatu. He's such a talented and all-around really great player. Darius Messiah, 8 tackles for loss, 4 sacks for him. Good numbers for him. Gary Smith III can step up, 21 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks for him. Grayson Murphy, 24 total tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. There are so many guys that get in the backfield here, just numbers across the board that are very productive. Kamari Ramsey is a solid piece as well. Carl Jones, Gabriel Murphy, total tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. Now, we don't know who's going to be playing of those players I listed off, so that could certainly throw a wrench into this. But if they're playing at full strength, this rush defense will have no problem stopping this dynamite Boise offense on the ground. But if they're weakened, you can expect Boise to start picking off some bigger runs and be able to get some chunk plays and get the ball moving a little bit.
Yeah, I expected this defense to be really good this year, but even they blew my mind. They held opponents to 25-yard rushing yards or less on 4 different occasions. That includes USC. So this is just a dominant rushing defense. I was very happy with what they did this year. Secondary, I thought they would take some big steps forward this year, and they did. 14 interceptions. They snagged at least 1 pick in the final 4 games of the year, giving up a little under 230 yards per game through the air, about 61% comp rate. This was never really a liability. Caleb Williams obviously had some success. They were incredibly one-dimensional. We were playing from behind in that one. Noah Fafita in Arizona really tore them apart. That was about it, though. This passing defense, they weren't the most polished against Oregon State either. But, a couple of outliers, really, Nick. This is a great pass defense. They don't seem to be tested all too much in this one. Guys like Kamari Ramsey, John Humphrey this year really stepped up. Alex Johnson. Some highly graded corners from this season. Devin Kirkwood as well. I expected them to really progress in all areas, especially in the secondary. But this is just amazing work by Lynn. Seems like the Trojans got a great haul by hiring him. What's your final assessment of this Bruins defense? Even if they're not at full strength, I think they're going to turn in a heck of a performance here. And I feel like this is just kind of a wasted season for UCLA because this defense really could have performed at a national level, I'd say.
It is certainly UCLA players. Jalen Davies, 37 total breakups and a pick. Kamari Ramsey, 40 total tackles, 4 pass breakups and a pick. Kenny Churchwell, 43 total tackles, 2 pass breakups and a pick. They have just great numbers across the board. This is a fantastic unit that's very slept on. Below 300 yards per game allowed, 229 allowed through the air, and 69.5 yards per game allowed on the ground. We thought this defense would be solid, but they have blown away expectations for even the most hardcore, fantastic UCLA Bruins defense that's really getting wasted on a 7-5 season. It's disappointing that the offense could not bail them out and really get them into games. This defense kept them in games like the game against Utah, like some other games, the game against Arizona State, game against Arizona. The defense kept them in those games, and the offense just could not get the points to bail them out. Disappointing if you're a Bruins fan, certainly.
Look at the Boise State defense. Early on in the season, over the first 5-6 games, they were not good on this side of the ball. Over the last month, though, they've ripped off 4 wins in a row, less than 400 yards allowed in all those games. Figured the game with UNLV would be a bit of a shootout. 298 yards. They turned in their best effort of the season. It's led by a couple of phenomenal edge presence. Ahmed Hassan with 16.5 TFL. Andrew Simpson at linebacker of his 15 TFL. Certainly the other linebacking positions for this team they're pretty beat up at, and it didn't really cause them to falter one bit. This is defense that's really playing at a high level, kind of out of nowhere. It's been interesting to watch because I think they've been very good themselves against the run, and that's going to be the game really for both teams is who can be better in the trenches. They only gave up 206 to Air Force, 81 against UNLV. That's been a good rushing attack. The only blemish this year really was 258 to UCF. After that, they've only given up that 200-yard contest to Air Force. If you want to eclipse 200 this year, those are the only people they're able to do it. I mean, this is really impressive stuff. Like you said, Danielson's been doing great things. Sheldon Newton's really good up front for them on their D-line. Some productive players coming off the edge. Herbert Gums, another defensive lineman, providing some admirable work for them. Pretty happy with what they have here. Middle linebacker is still a bit of an issue, Nick. I'm not sure who's going to play. Still kind of seem beat up in that regard, but it doesn't seem like they care. They've been playing some good ball, and Dimitri Washington, a veteran edge presence, also figures to be good in this game as well.
There's some solid pieces here. Andrew Simpson is a great linebacker for this team, a good leader, 60 total tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, 2 picks for him. Great numbers there. Ahmad Hassan, 52 total tackles, 16.5 tackles for loss, 12.5 sacks. Really good numbers out of him off the edge. I think he's a really solid player who can get in the backfield. Herbert Gums, 20 total tackles, good numbers from him, 1 tackle for loss and a half a sack for Gums. Some other solid pieces throughout this defense. I think there are DJ Schwarm, Jaden Virgin are all talented players as well. Virgin, 24 total tackles for 2.5 tackles for loss. Sheldon Newton, 22 total tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss. So they do have some good production. They get in the backfield to make the quarterback uncomfortable. They gave up 24.8 points in this 0.87 yards per attempt on the ground. If they can get in the backfield and make the quarterback uncomfortable, quarterback making a rare start, this could have a lot of success for this Boise State defense.
Broncos secondary has been dynamite over this winning streak, and it is a big liability for them early on in the year where they've really locked things down. So I don't think UCLA is going to be all that big. They just need to be sound underneath covering. Amari McCoy at corner is great. Sayo Oladipo, he's phenomenal for them. Ty Benfield, a young player. So I think the secondary, they're going to have a pretty stout day in that regard. Final thoughts and the prediction, for UCLA, who's in? I don't know who's going to play in this game. If we ought to, 2 plays and the Murphy Bros are in, then I'm probably going to take them because this run D is such an edge if it's at full strength. Obviously, you got some things that work out on offense, too. They might have some guys that dip late. Feed Ashton Gianti for Boise in the pass D. Needs to continue to create. This team has been able to snag a lot of interceptions recently, 11 of them. They got, over the last 3 games, 5 of those picks. So, they're playing at their highest level all year long. Only 2-point dogs in this one. I'm going to stick with Boise for now because I'm going under the assumption that some of those big key players for the Bruins will not be playing. And their offense still at the end of the day is not all that particularly well. Low confidence points on this one, Nick, but I think that Boise, they're going to do enough on offense to get this one done, a lower scoring contest. But if they're at full strength, I'm really liking the Bruins even with some of the liabilities on offense.
I'm on board here with you with the Bruins and also the low confidence points. I like Boise State. Spencer Danielson's taken over after they fired Andy Alvos, and he has been a great leader for this team. They ended up winning the Mountain West when things looked dead for them. They came back and absolutely dominated UNLV in that game on the road in Vegas. This team is playing with great energy. I like the hot team here. UCLA, they're all over the place. We don't know who's really going to be playing for them. They're missing so many different pieces. So I'm going to take Boise State here. I like them to win this game a whole lot. They should have a decent crowd. I know Boise State has a solid alumni base out there in LA, obviously. UCLA will have a good crowd as well because it's LA after all. But I Boise State to have some fans. Saw a lot of their fans travel down to Vegas while we were out there. I like the Broncos in this one. I think they're the hot team here, and I'm going to take the hot team in these type of matchups. UCLA looks banged up and battled with the transfer portal issues. I like the Broncos here. Give me the Broncos, certainly.
Yeah, I'm more worried about opt-outs maybe than transfers. We'll see what happens. Maybe this is the one you pick late, but if you want to be undefeated in Bowl Mania, certainly need to keep your eye on this one. If you're not all that worried and just looking for points, just make it low and pick either side. It's me for today's episode. Appreciate you guys joining. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.
I don't know what was wrong. It was cut out like crazy at the end there.